Momus Najmi, welcome back to Thinking Class. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Well, it's been some time. I think we spoke in February 2024. We got right into the topic of Islam, theological basis of Islam, the impact that it's having as it mixes with other cultures throughout the West. That is not the topic of our conversation today. I think you do that a lot in other places, probably a bit sick of it. I know you're writing a book about it, and we can maybe get to that at the end. But you've been writing quite a lot recently about having grown disillusioned with politics, specifically political movements here in Britain. Maybe you can tell us why it is that you're getting disillusioned with such movements.
Right. I'm not sure. I would say I'm getting disillusioned with politics, right? Because I love politics, but it's the people. It's politicking, probably. It's people, how they're engaging with it, and not just the people who are doing politics, but actually the public itself, the way that they're voting, the way they become such personality sort of cult oriented. I'm sick of that. The people are not focusing on the policies that can actually make changes, but of just rhetorics, right? So, and just personalities. So also, I think overall there are certain inevitable things that are going to happen, in my view, right? And it's not just my view. Obviously, you've had people like David Betts as well, who's been saying this for a long time, and other people as well who have been talking about civil war, civil unrest, and it might not turn out to be an actual war, as in street fighting and stuff. There might be just some scuffles and stuff, but a period of suffering is upon us, right? And I don't see anyone trying to any unifying force right now with a vision to actually undo these things. There's no serious players in this matter, including Reform Party, including any other new parties as well. New party even Advance UK is never going to gain that much traction, in my view. And I am very favorable towards SDP, but they've been trying for a while. They're never going to take that view right now. No party is going to do that, right? Tories are in turmoil. They need to be reformed themselves. That's just not going to happen right now. It's not going to happen in 2029. I know people are desperate, but desperation doesn't mean we're gonna get things right. It's usually we're gonna fuck things up. And I think so that is inevitable. That's going to happen. We're going to have high inflation. We're going to have shortages of things. We have to go through this period, right? So I am more focused on what happens after this period, because in my head it's already resolved. One form of another is going to be some form of struggle we have to go through, right? So it's best to prepare ourselves for that struggle rather than trying to still cling on to this, some savior is going to save us, right? Because that's what people are so desperate about. That it is going to happen, right? So it's sort of your parents are going to spank you because you've been bad. It's coming. But we're so desperate to avoid that spanking, right? It's coming, right? It is going to happen one way or another, economic or civil unrest, or both combined, on whatever level, even full out war or not full out war with external enemies or whatever. Something is coming, something is not right, and it's probably needed to some level as well, right? So I am sort of tired of the now, and I want to think about what happens after that. How do we organize ourselves after that, so that the lessons learned from that struggle actually result into something productive and actual reforms can happen, right? Because what can also happen through these difficult times is that we are so disconnected that we give our enemies enough power to take complete control. So we could actually end up being a communist state for a lot longer than we need to be, right? Because we give them the ammunition that's needed, right? So what my thoughts are more concentrated on is what happens afterwards. And people who want to think about what happens afterwards are sort of like my kind of people who are just in the immediate right now. I just don't think I can help them anymore, or I can be part of that anymore. um in my piece as well, I know I'm going on for a bit, but in my piece as well that I wrote, I was talking about the importance of the three things that needs to be reformed, right? The and that's the monarchy that needs to be reformed, and not the way necessarily that it functions as a constitutional monarchy, but possibly the personnel involved at the moment, right? That needs to happen, and that's not going to happen till at least within our 10-year period. It's not going to happen.
Before you get to the other 2 points, Momus, and you're talking about the reforming of personnel and the monarchy, who are we talking about?
Well, we're talking about our current king, right? And it's it's not easy to say that, because you are, you know, kind of close to being a traitor when you talk about the king in that way. But if the king is sort of letting down the people so much, then you have to you know start talking about these things and start thinking about those things. And it's pretty clear that our king has a direction that he wants to take the country, and that is not going to be conducive for the whole of Britain.
And are you referring specifically to his avowedly multiculturalist stance?
Well, he's always been like that, right? So like especially when it comes to Islam, right? So, and a lot of people I have also heard a lot of people say like, oh, it's that's why the queen held on for that long and blah blah stuff like that. I think that's bullshit, because she's the one who gave the royal charter to the Islamic Studies Center in Oxford, right? So this is something on whatever level our elites, and not just our the monarchy, but all our elites have sort of kneel down to, in a way that they think that Islam is the future, right? And it's not just me saying it. So there's a lot of people who've said that. There's very notable people in the House of Lords who would say that as well. That regrettably, a lot of elites have actually come down to this conclusion that probably Islam is the future, because they can't see a revival of Christianity, and now it's just like damage control for them, right? Whether they want it or not, they are just thinking about damage control, because they can't think about what a reversal would be, because a reversal would mean a lot of hard decisions that needs to be taken, right? And they just don't have the stomach for it. So maybe a change in personnel in the monarchy, which has more fortitude, that can actually give that give that confidence in the political elites as well, to actually follow through what they want, right? Because what we've seen is, even when it comes to Nigel Farage, he's also kneeling down to the Muslim votes and stuff like that, right? It's because he doesn't have the confidence as well from the monarchy. Even if he becomes a prime minister, right? And the king's direction is like, no, no, we're not kicking out Islam at all. We're not going to go against Islam. It's not Islam. It's just few people within Islam, and we're going to tackle that, and we're going to have more and more Islamic centers of study, and we're going to invite people, different Islamic scholars, like he said, to like which the Islamic Center is doing in Oxford, to give speeches and stuff, and broaden the understanding of Islam. Why the hell do we need to do that, right? So it's already cuckolding to Islam, right? And any prime minister that comes in will have that problem to deal with.
Hmm.
You know,
Okay. And when we're talking about change in personnel in the monarchy, are we thinking about bringing up an example I saw someone say the other day, which is, I would never go against the crown because that would make me a Republican, and I'm not. However, I do support an abdication rather than a revolution. Is this what you're saying? Is move over and let's see if William has some metal?
so this is my understanding, right? So if he moves over now and William comes in, it's going to be business as usual, and we're still going to go through decline. If we go through a period of struggle with this high civil unrest, high um uh, disunity as well, and high anger towards the monarchy for not fixing it, right? And then in that process, the king passes away, moves on, right, and then William takes over, then it won't be business as usual, right? Because and whoever takes over after that, because they would have to do they will have to take certain steps to win back the public,
Yeah.
right? So
Do what the monarchy's always done, which is survive.
yeah, so that they will have to do, but they won't do unless they're pushed to that point. So right now, changing the personnel is not going to fix it. By going through the inevitable, and then changing it might have a better effect of it, and that's what I think. Because otherwise we will go, if we change the personnel right now and it's business as usual, then we can be damn sure that we're going to become a republic within the 10 years, if that happens, right? Because if we change the personnel and nothing happens and it's still the same old, then people are like, okay, you know what, we are done with monarchy, we're not giving it another chance. And we might still have, and the pressure will actually come more if Australia becomes a republic as well, right? If they go through being a republic, I think so that can have a cascading effect. And if that means, and if the monarchy over here doesn't change, it's snapped.
Okay. Well, interesting. It's also interesting hearing you talk about we have to go through the period of struggle. It brings to mind the story of Exodus. The Israelites, they lose sight of what matters. I think Thomas Carlyle ended up quoting in one of his many excellent speeches, which I've been reading of late, or lectures, should I say, which I think he paraphrased from scripture, which is you have forgotten the ways of the God, you do not walk the way of God, and thus you must suffer. Whether people want to subscribe to the scriptural stuff is effectively what you're saying is, look, we've lost our way in just about every single area. Suffering is inevitable. Yeah. We're going to go through that period being out in the desert before we're able to return to Jerusalem, so to speak.
Yeah, and that has to happen, right? And that's like even out of biblical context, struggle is vital for us. I just want to concentrate that our struggle is for something, and it's not, it's not just continuous. It's not towards a decline of non-existence for a country like Britain. But if we are going through a struggle, it has to have a meaning. It has to have a purpose. That's why I want to think about what happens next, so that it gives a purpose to the struggle. So people know why they're tightening their belts, because there's something.
Understood. Well, I stopped you and made you expand on point number one of the three things that needs to happen. What are the other two things, Momus?
So the second thing is, I think, so the reformation of the Tory party and the reformation of Conservatives is actually really vital. And I know people are very angry at the Conservative Party for failing them, right? And the reason why people are more angry at the Tory party than they actually are even at Labour and stuff as well is the very reason why we need a reformation of the Tory party, is because Tory party is like the monarchy, right? It is the party, and every other party is a challenger to that party, right? And it's sort of like that father figure of a party, right? And that if that goes astray, I think so the country goes astray. It has the apparatus built in, it has the imagination of people still intact, right? And that is the prime mover of politics. Things change when they move, right? It won't change unless they move. If we reform them, then we are actually thinking about not just reforming the Conservative Party. So people need to stop thinking about we're just reforming the Conservative Party itself, right? And stop thinking about their period of 14 years, because the party is more than the 14 years, and the country is more than those failed 14 years, right? We're actually talking about reforming the elites, right? And also why you need elites in any society for effective governance, right? It's not that the fact that we have elites that's a problem. It's the fact that we have a corrupted elite and an incompetent elite that's a problem. So when we're talking about reforming the Tory party, we're actually talking about reforming the elites, actually having competent people back who know how to govern, who know how to build policies, who know how to look after their own people, their country, and everything within, right? I think so. That's why it's important to reform Tory party. But again, Tory party will not be reformed unless they go through that period of extreme humiliation and struggle and the justified hate of the people, which has to happen now, right? So people are getting, when I say that, people get angry at me for saying, "Oh, just forget about the Tory party," right? Well, you haven't been able to forget about it since its inception, so there's a reason for it, right? You can't forget about it. But I'm not saying you don't have to get angry at them. I'm not talking about that you need to reform them now. No, they actually have to go through this themselves, right? This struggle, they have to have even a more humiliation in 2029. I'm talking about reforming them from for 2034, like, because that's when we can start changing things. So that's my second point.
Well, I think you're onto something there. I have made this point on this podcast and also in private conversation with a few people that I believe the reports that the Conservative Party is dead may be a little premature, to paraphrase a famous film line, in that it's been around for hundreds of years, and in accordance with the Lindy effect, which Nassim Nicholas Taleb has described so well, as the things that of old that have been around for so long are likely to be around for even longer. It's not to say that it's absolutely sure that they're going to survive, but as you've pointed out, is that there is going to be no real answer in 2029. I mean, there's never a silver bullet, but 2029 may well prove to be a false dawn. It might be that if you do end up with a reform government or whatever else, that all just goes to pot, or that circumstances means you can't get there. But by 2034, because of the long period of suffering that's currently being endured, is that people will need to be living in a totally different political paradigm. And the Conservative Party, after all of that time, if they don't get back in at the next election, will have done a lot of time clearing out deadwood. And I look at the Tories, and similar to you, which is I don't really want to go sliming people all of the time just for the sake of it. If I start to see good being done, then that should be recognised. And I take a similar view to Douglas Carswell, who came on the show, where he said, I don't really care who does the things that are right, just so long as it gets done. And that goes for the Labour Party, it goes for the rest of it. And if I look at the Tories, not the current leadership, but if I look at Jenrick and his acolytes like Neil O'Brien and Katie Lamb and Nick Timothy and all the rest of it, I go, actually, that there would be a very useful leadership team and more likely to be able to govern than all of the other challengers so far. So I think it's a deleterious thing to do to just dismiss a whole party and all of the things they might be able to do.
They have to die as well to rise from the ashes, exactly, to be reborn. And in every single instance, the third one that I come up to as well, the first two instances as well, they both have to die. The monarchy has to be at its lowest. It has to die to be able to be reborn, right? This is the story, like, of the Christ itself as well. Like, the rebirth is important, but you can't be born again unless you have died once, right? So that story has to come to an end for them to be born. And it's not as if I'm saying like all the parties, all the smaller parties and stuff are not important, and then we should only have like one singular party. The thing is, those parties are important as well as pressure groups to keep the Tories on their toes, right? So you need Reform Party, you need Advanced UK as well. I don't see Advanced UK's role as being more than more of a role than Liberal Democrats, right? They're never going to form a government, but they can be in a very strong position. And this is actually what I see for Reform as well. They can be in a position where they can swing the decisions. They can put pressure on, right? That's why you need those parties. But ultimately, they are all challengers to the main party of Conservatives, Labour included. All of them are actually challengers. That's why every time a Labour Party like forms government, it always fails, because they just don't know what to do. Like, they do know what to do when they're government, but like, they're trying to enact their way of thinking, right? Their socialist way of life. They're not trying to correct things that the conservatives got wrong. That is what the other challengers would do, right? But these parties on the left, they are trying to enact something completely new. So they want to do away with what the conservatives are. Conservatives' problem has been that they try to appease these people who actually want to destroy completely the way that Britain has been run, right from the time of Tony Blair and even before. That's what they've tried to do. They've tried to completely, you know, change the way Britain is run. There's no point on appeasing those people. And the greatest win of the communist has been in infiltrating the Conservative Party with these liberal Democrats and these sort of liberal people within the party, right? So that needs to change, and that is only going to change once the Conservative Party completely dies, and it comes out like a new crop of people who restart it while their party apparatus is still there. Because I don't see uh, I just don't see Reform Party as being a serious enough party to be able to govern. Right? They can be in government. They might win all the votes and stuff. Like, that doesn't matter. Winning an election is not the point. Right? What do you do with that? Is the point, right? So they put out statement like yesterday. It really annoyed me. They put out these tweet Nigel Farage said he will require all police officers, the police officers, to investigate all crimes or something of that sort, right? So what a vacuously stupid statement to make. Obviously, they're required by the crown when they take take the oath to the crown. They are required to investigate every single crime. Right? It's in their oath that they will do all they can to prevent all crimes, right? And to pursue all means, right? The problem is not what you will require them to do. The problem for them is what is their capacity and ability to do those things, right? So how are you going to enable them? How are you going to make sure that they have enough capacity? How are you going to build in reforms for the police academy and stuff to be, so that you enable them to do the stuff, right? So it just shows me when they put out these slop sort of statements that they're not really serious about these things. They don't really know how it works. And the same that I saw were like them winning local elections as well, local council elections and stuff, when they started talking about the Doge, the UK Doge like thing that they started, what's his name, whatever his name is, Zia Yusuf, right? So he started saying it. It was pretty clear that they don't know how local councils are run. When they were saying, oh, we're going to audit, the councillors are going to audit the councils, like, okay, unless you change the complete law on that, that's not how it happens. A council itself does an audit on itself, right? It That's how it does it. A local councils actually cannot do audits on it, right? But it's just they put out these statements because they know at this point that the public doesn't know how things work, right? And that's why it's easy to fool the public, because these are statements that are very nice statements to make, right? They're very catchy statements to make. Oh, I'll require every police officer to investigate all crimes. Then people are all of a sudden thinking, oh yeah, that means they won't be investigating all the woke crimes, all the woke hate crimes and stuff like that. It's like, even if you take that away, they still don't have the capacity to investigate everything. That's how much crime we have currently, and that's how much they lack the capacity. That's how much admin work that they have to do, that they are trapped into this. That's why how much they have to write investigation reports after every single incident reports after every single incident, right? It ties them up in those sort of things. It just shows me that they don't know how the mechanics of each of those departments work, right? If they come in government, the civil service will continue as usual, and what they will end up doing is that they'll end up putting out these statements and say, see, we tried to do something, and the civil service, the government blob, the deep state is stopping us from doing it. So they will keep getting the confidence of the people, the popularity, because they'll be like, well, we are trying, but the government is stopping us. The civil service is stopping us from doing it. Well, fine, like that's a good way of doing like empty politics, right? But I'm not interested in that. It's like, I'm interested in how you're actually going to make the civil service do those things, and you won't be able to make them do anything unless you actually know what you're talking about, right? So anyways, like, that was a long tangent on why I don't think like Reform Party is like able to do those things. Conservative Party has that apparatus and has that understanding. It's just that they don't have the political will right now, so they need to go through that point. But the third reformation point is the reformation of faith, right? And that is the most important reformation that is needed. All of these points of reformation can, in my opinion, cannot be in isolation of each other. They have to be, they have to be in concert with each other, and they have to affect each other, right? So when the faith is reformed, you know and has the beginning of it, that's when it will have an effect on monarchy and the conservatives. And and you are already seeing those glimmer of things, not in the monarchy, which is disturbing to see, but you're seeing it within the Tory party, where more and more Christian MPs are actually finding their voice, right? And you can see why it will work only through Christianity, only through the reformation of faith, right? That's when we can confidently say no to things on the basis of it. So that those were my 3 points. Like, at this point, I don't really care whether people agree or disagree with me. I've never cared anyways, but I especially don't agree right now. Don't care right now if people agree or not, because I'm thinking about what happens next, what's needed next. Because I'm already settled in my mind. There is going to be a point of extreme period of extreme struggle. I've tried telling very notable people, giving them plans and stuff, but they're not interested in it, on how to create strongholds, cultural strongholds, physical strongholds, intellectual strongholds, that that we actually need physical places of strongholds and stuff in certain communities to protect the British people. They're not interested. They want to seem interested to other people, right? This is why I'm disillusioned by everyone right now as well, in the world of politics, activism, or whatever the hell you want to call it. Because most of the people I see, they're only interested in their own notoriety. People are more interested in to be the hero rather than saving the people. Right? And I'm not. I'm only interested in saving the people. So I'm just like, okay, if you're not going to do it, then I need to do it for myself. So, yeah.
Well, the intellectual, physical, cultural strongholds you've been talking about, it has rings of Rod Dreher's The Benedict Option, where he, for those who don't know it, suggests that when a culture has gone so far wrong, in which case he's making the argument that modernity, heavily secularized, progressive modernity, has become an aberration, and it is bad for our health, both individually and as families and as societies. It's better to surround yourself with people who are committed to a more fulsome human life, like the one you just talked about in point 3, which is one focused around faith, and specifically the faith that drove this country for the last 1,500 years at least. Let's think about that a little bit more. So I guess what you're saying is we all need to go and not just touch grass, get off the internet and be thinking about clicks and all the rest of it, but actually we need to go and live cheek by jowl, shoulder to shoulder with the people in our neighborhood, pick up some kind of a tool and get digging or hammering or whatever. Obviously, I'm speaking figuratively. It might be that you go and support with just cleaning the neighborhood or repairing things or whatever, but quite actually going and getting involved in a community, not just in an abstract sense, but becoming a part of it. And for all of the warts and all, because I do think, as I look around, even just interacting with people, particularly people under the age of 30 on a day-to-day, just how much personalities have been, and culture has been totally homogenized to the point that personalities are lacking depth now, and the view of the world is this internationalized pop culture. We all use the same language, depending on which algorithm we're down, obviously determines how we see the world. And we find ourselves talking about an awful lot of things, and in many respects that is important. I'm glad I am kept up to date with what's going on in the world, as much as it's entirely depressing, but it does help you see the direction of travel. But at the same token, it can be very dispiriting is that if that's all you do, and actually the amount of energy you get out from just going and dealing with flesh and blood people on the street is a good thing. And I know it's something as I'm moving into this next chapter in my own life that I'm looking forward to going and pick up that mantle, because perhaps like you, Momus, I'm looking around going, there are more productive things that we can be doing in life. Is that what you mean? Get out there and actually just do something be famous within 5 miles or within a mile instead of trying to be famous on the internet.
I think so. That is the community sort of aspect to it, right? So a community aspect, taking the personal, and as an individual taking the personal and social responsibility, right? But that doesn't translate into communism. I don't want the government to take responsibility for me. I want individuals to take responsibility for them, and that's the antithesis for communism, when you're depending on the government to do your community work, right? And that is the essence in what Christianity actually is. But it teaches you about social and individual responsibility, that if you have to do the work of charity and stuff, you do it yourself, right? The onus is upon you to do it up to your ability, however much ability you have to do that good, right? And when it comes to also restoration of faith that I'm talking about as well, it's important to understand that I'm not just saying start going to church, right? So if I have empty souls going to church and just doing the, whatever things that the church require you to do, that's not going to restore anything, because you're just trying to cling on to a new fad now, right? Like, oh, I can go on social media and show, oh, I've been to the church, look, I've been to the church, oh, this is like my cross or whatever. That's not going to restore the faith, right? That's actually going to damage the faith even more, because that's going to show the actual faith to be just like, just anything, just like a point of influence, just a political tool, right? So you don't want the faith to actually become a political tool. What I'm talking about is deeper. I'm talking about spiritual connection, restoration of the spirit and the faith, right? It doesn't mean that you have to be a believing Christian, right? But it most likely will lead you to become a believing Christian in time. Well, I don't require you to become a believing Christian now. I require you to start that journey, right, of investigating the spirit more than material, right? And that will change your worldview. That will change your, that will start making you think not just for yourself, not just for your security, but beyond yourself. And that's really the investigation that is needed in people. And that's where the restoration of faith is going to become, when people start doing that, right? Because in my view, like, Christianity started like, okay, I'm not an expert in this, right? So I'm just giving my view on this. I think so. This is what I dislike about the Catholic Church itself, because it makes Christianity into a church, right? Into an organization, when it's supposed to be a bit more than that. It's supposed to be an investigation of yourself and stuff. When people just depend on certain, oh, like the priest is going to do that for me, or if I just go to a confession, it's going to be fine, right? I can do whatever things I want, and I just go confess my sins and everything is fine. I don't need to actually have that moment of reflection of not doing it and stuff. Like, I'm probably wrong on that anyways. Doesn't matter. What I'm saying is it has to be, the church and the faith has to be more than bricks and mortar and priest and the way of doing things, and like, rituals or whatever. It has to be more than that. The restoration of faith is going to come from the investigation of the spirit, and where it leads you, that will be determined by that period of struggle, right? So if, let's say, people become more spiritually aware, right, of and trying to grasp at faith, but through this period of struggle, they actually become, pagan, all of them. In my view, that's going to lead to disaster, because it's not going to be organized. It's going to be more anarchy and libertarian anarchy. That's what it's going to lead to. But then that's fine. Then that means we get destroyed then eventually, right? Or we form into something else, or we become more Muslim, right? We go through this struggle and we find like, okay, the only faith that we can have is the, the teaching of a pedophile prophet and warmongering prophet. So that's what we become in the Islamic Republic of Britain, right? So it's just like we won't be what we are. We still will be Britain, but like it will be Islamic Britain. But obviously that means Britain will be no more, right? It will be something new, right? So it's not as if like if we go down a certain route, the Britain is going to get nuclear, right? It's not going to get nuclear blasted out of the existence. It's just going to be different. So the investigation of spirit, I think so, is that needs to come first before saying, oh, just go to the church and stuff, right? And then just start becoming more Christian. People need to dig down into it. They need to start doing more community work. They need to start helping their neighbors more. They need to start caring more. And when I believe once we start doing these things, it will lead us down to Christianity anyways, because that is what is at the heart of Christianity. That sort of spirit is at the heart of Christianity, and it will lead us down over there, and that's more familiar to Britain, right? But it's not going to come by just people going to the church and posting on social media, oh, I'm going to church, or the grandstanding for as a Christian, like, or shouting Christ is king while not understanding the wisdom of the Christ. That is what I was trying to say, actually, for all that long. Could have been boiled down to just one sentence. Try to understand the wisdom of the Christ rather than shouting Christ is king first.
Yeah, well, that makes sense to me as a at least a rather mild defense of the Catholic Church. Being Catholic myself, I understand what you're saying actually, with regards to there being a risk that you could just outsource your conscience and your faith ultimately to others, specifically in this case the Catholic hierarchy which you're talking about. What I would say, though, is because of the very kernel of Christianity, which is all about recognizing our fallen nature and that your life's work is to make this crooked bit of wood as straight as it can be, while recognizing you'll never do that, but you have agency and free will, and it is your God-given gift to be able to make decisions that are in accordance with Christ-like behavior and symbolism. That is ultimately what the Catholic Church is set up to do. And obviously it has gotten it wrong through the years, because it is full of humans just like the rest of us, and they can end up with corrupted hearts and souls like the rest of us. But the way it's set up, having an authority which allows you to understand, learn, and have access to this wisdom, which you would never have without that hierarchy. Is we're all born, we have no knowledge, it gets imparted into us. And so by going through the rituals, traditions, and the internal process of calling to mind your confessions, sharing them, it is on you as a Christian to actually go and live those and not be empty. And I'm not perfect at this at all, but to not live an empty Christian life like the one you described, but actually be, as Paul said, be transformed by your new mind. And that once you walk out of that confession box, once you walk out of having engaged with the priest, you're out there in the world actually trying to live it, rather than it being, as you pointed out, an aesthetic thing, right? Thing like, look at me, I'm now a Christian, here's my cross, I'm out doing these things, actually living it. As I say, I can't say I'm a perfect Christian by any measure.
It has to be transformative, right? So I'm not a baptized Christian myself, right? But it's like I'm just inviting people to go on a journey, wherever that journey leads you. If at the heart of that journey is to reconnect with a spiritual self and still tie it to a sense of reality, right? So you don't go on the woo-woo spiritual journey, right? Is you start believing in astrology and all that crap, right? But like the actual investigation of the spirit, when you go towards, right, it is most likely going to lead you somewhere good. And at the most, at the least, is going to make you want to do good, right? And that will at least create an environment conducive enough for more people to investigate their spirit, right? And that will eventually lead people to Christ, right? So as long as people have the spirit of Christ, it doesn't matter which church they go to, which doctrine they follow. If they have the spirit of the Christ, good outcomes will come, right? And that's the lowest bar I personally want to set on the restoration of faith,
Mm.
is people's personal faith. I'm not talking about restoring the Church of England. I'm not talking about restoring Catholic Church. I'm not talking about restoring Orthodox Church. I'm talking about restoring the faith in people. That's why I didn't say restoration of church.
Mm. Well, I won't grab your head personally and push it into the baptismal font, Momus. I'll leave you to do that yourself.
Yeah.
But just sticking on faith a little bit whilst mixing the conversation with podcasting,
Yeah.
is you were born into a Muslim family. You are of Pakistani heritage, lived in Kuwait, and you have clearly been very outspoken on Islam and what you believe is the negative impacts it's been having within Britain and beyond. I would say that has probably caused you some security concerns, and I don't want to make you say anything that you don't want to. But if I think about your time on the internet as a face, doing podcasting, with the things that come from doing that, from taking an outspoken view against Islam, has it been worth it?
It's always worth it to speak the truth, right? If not for others, it's for yourself. It's worth it, because then the more true you are to yourself, the better journey that you can take, right? The better investigation that you can take into your own life and stuff, right? You're not hiding behind false things. You're not living a lie. So that's always been worth it. I think so. There's a reason why I left Islam as well, because I could have just kept on pretending to be a Muslim, living in a Muslim country. I had every opportunity over there. I would have been far more successful in whatever I'm doing right now had I, chosen that path, even in my profession and stuff, because I had more opportunities, I had more connections and stuff. But I chose not to do it because I couldn't be true to myself. And I was like, well, that's not a way to live, because I've never been someone who's been interested in money. Maybe people can say it because I've had money, but I have, that's not really the case. Our family has seen ups and downs. Been in wars when I was 4 years old, lost everything. Then family gained a bit more. We living up and down the middle class sort of life and stuff. Where people can say, okay, you're always comfortable enough, that's why you never cared about money. I was like, I don't think so. That's the thing. I think so. I just never did cared that more about money than myself. Sorry, more about money than my spirit, right? And how I connect that with the world, right? That has been more of my concern. So in that sense, I think so it has been worth it, and this is the reason why I left it at that point, because I just couldn't live a lie. When I investigated more and more, it took me 6 years to actually research more and convince myself. More than research, I spent those 6 years convincing myself not to leave Islam, right? And finding ways of not leaving it, delving into different elements of it. And it's like, okay, don't leave, because I had a lot to lose, right? But when I came to that point where it became like, okay, no, there is no other way. I cannot condone the actions of this prophet, of this false prophet. It is not giving me the spiritual satisfaction. It is not connecting me to the universe, sort of like the cosmos, sort of a thing. Like, it's not, inspiring me to be a better human being. Why should I condone this? Because if I condone this, then I'm condoning it for other people who know me as well, right? And I'm sending them to a path of hell through my actions, through my inaction, right? So I had to do it in the same way that I had to do over there. So when I see something I have to speak it as well, because it's always, I think so, it's always worth it, no matter the consequences, to speak the truth. And if you have the faith, you can change the way that you speak the truth, right? Which is something that I think so we wanted to talk about, maybe.
Mm.
It's something that I've been reflecting upon, of maybe I need to change my tact of how I do it. Maybe these times since October 7th has, ruffled me a bit too much, right? And where I have been engaging out of character into the same topics that I've been talking about before as well, but I've been engaging in them differently before to how I've started engaging with them now. And maybe I need to, like, self-reflect, go through a period of self-reflection, see, like, okay, what am I doing? Who am I involving myself with? Are they actually beneficial? Do I see them being beneficial? Am I, you know, uh, am I that person which people might perceive or not? Like, can I, so those sort of things, I think so I need to go through a self-reflection for. But, like, to answer that again, like, yeah, it's always worth it to speak the truth.
Some of the people that you have talked about in recent posts, you talked about some people being grifters. You talked about some people perhaps not particularly welcoming you taking different viewpoints on them, perhaps people you were once closer to. I again don't know who these people are. And I suppose there's another point on there, which is your dismay. Maybe this is a separate point, your dismay at older commentators, politicians, and all the rest of it, seeming to outsource or delegate the hard conversations to younger people. Is this all part of your change in approach? Is it that you're effectively trying to steer clear of people that you think are political opportunists, or people who are just trying to, they're too single and narrow-minded, and you just want to be able to create your own more independently minded platform? Is this what's happening?
So it's more about, like, concentrating on what I want to do rather than what others want to do, right? Because everyone has their own idea. Everyone is doing things in a way that they think is going to get them the win that they want, right? I just don't, overall, it's not about, like, particular individuals, it's everyone, right? I just don't see overall people have had that restoration of the spirit to be able to take those decisions beyond themselves, right? Or to explore those things beyond them. I think so people are, so many people are, they're trying, but they're still so concerned about being the hero rather than saving the people, that that's their prime motive. And that's what I see with everyone, right? Now, there are good elements out there in all of those people, right? They're not like, everyone is not just completely bad. Even when it comes to Reform Party and stuff, they all have good elements. I want to speak to their good parts, right? I want to help that good part, people to focus on the good parts, and maybe, change them, right? Sort of like save the souls of those people. But overly, I also don't want to associate with people more, like, officially, like, sort of associate with anyone. And that's just because I think so I want to go on my own journey, and see where it leads me. Because, like, it can change you trying to live up to other people's expectations of who you are supposed to be rather than who you are, can change you. And it's not as if, like, oh, I want to become, like, some superhero or something like that, or some, like, the ultimate savior or something. No, I just want to focus on myself more and my family more, and, like, do the things around my community more, sort of a thing, right? Wherever that leads me, that will lead me. But I also think, like, I'm not fully equipped, uh have enough experience, have enough, like, a lot of things to be able to help people properly, right? So I want to concentrate on that as well. How do I build myself up personally, so that I have more expertise than I have at the moment, so that I can bring about effective change, if change is going to come through me or via my help, right? So I can give better help rather than, like, trying to hold, um, the things at the moment. So and that means that I need to have that space of exploration. I cannot be explicitly for one person or the other person, because I'm trying to explore the ideas, right? So I can't be like pro this person completely and completely shut down the other person and stop my learning from them, where I could have had learning from them to actually bring about the change, right? So, yeah, I
Hmm.
don't know if I'm making any sense, but
No,
yeah,
you are. I quite enjoyed you saying that ultimately, if at any point in the future there seems to be a duty incumbent on you to step up to the plate, you need to be effective and competent, and you can't just do that through following the algorithmic trends. And in many ways, this is the big thing about being a podcaster with modest followings like you and I, is that you can either choose to go all in on the engagement and just go, right, I'm all about podcasting, only podcasting and carrying a certain message. But in the end, you've trained yourself up to become a spokesperson, but perhaps not actually that effective in what it is that you're trying to bring about, if anything, or at least things that you would support if it were to be brought about. Um, and I struggle with similar things where I, from the beginning, have tried to maintain an independent focus and just look at areas that I'm interested in. That obviously can bring me back to politics and all the rest of it. But when you find yourself researching for things, guests, or just keeping up to date with all of the various trends that are going on in the country, and there's a lot of bad stuff out there, as you well know, is that you can then find yourself being caught up in inviting lots and lots of people on to speak about that thing. And before you know it, you've either theme captured yourself or audience captured yourself.
yeah,
And I think when you're effectively just wanting to have good conversations with people, and when the time arises, I would say contributes to the cultural tide of change, or the tide of cultural change you want to see bring about, then you've got to find a fine balance. Otherwise, what you'll do is you'll just go all in on, right, it's cultural change, therefore I just need to go for all the big political points that I want to see happen. But then all of a sudden you'll find that other people might not want to come on your podcast because they think, well, it's not going to serve their purpose to come on and talk about their historical investigation into the peasants' revolt or something,
yeah,
and all the rest of it. But you'd find that fascinating. You'd quite welcome that conversation, less about riots and this, that, and the other. But before you know it, you almost have no choice but to continue going on. So yeah, it's hard. I think this is the thing that's tough for all of us in this age, is that clearly we can be memed into a totally different character and a life, and I think there's certainly a space for all of the things we are viewing and seeing online. But if that becomes your sole locus of focus, as we picked up in other parts of this conversation, you can find yourself becoming dehumanized insofar as you're not really engaging in things beyond the political. So there is no room for faith, there's no room for family, there's no room for community.
yeah, and you're limiting your learning a lot. Like, and this is something I think so. This is something that the reason why I came up to that decision as well is because, yeah, I need to go through more period of self-reflection, but I already had all had this reflection, like, I'm not a podcaster, I have a podcast, right?
Yes.
So I'm not doing it for the clicks and views, because what I see is on new media, all of these people, like, they talk about, oh, it's so how different it is from mainstream media. It is not, just in name, just in production. It is the same. It operates the same. So the things that they are exploring and investigating and stuff like that, they'll only do it if it gives them the views and the clicks, because they already are audience captured, whether they like it or not, because that's how they earn money now, right? So they're, even in that sense, some of them are even worse than mainstream media, because in mainstream media, because you have the apparatus of the whole, like, let's say BBC, they can do documentaries about something that will only have 1,000 views, but they can afford to have that, right? And that might be a really interesting a documentary that maybe later, or 10 years on, people will look upon it, and from 1,000 it will become 10 million views eventually, right? And a person delving in new media cannot afford to do that. So their scope of investigation becomes lower and lower and lower, and it only concentrates on what is the attention of the people right now, right? They can only investigate those things, so they're limiting themselves so much. And this is what I decided, but that's not why I started my like little podcast. And that's the reason why it is still a little podcast, is because I want to have conversations to learn from myself, to grow, and that's what I was trying to do. So I don't want to say, oh, I won't have this people and that people. Well, I want to have people in topics that I'm interested in, and I want to explore topics, like, have my history and mythology episodes and investigate those topics, because I'm researching for myself. If someone wants to view it, that's a plus, but that's not really my focus, right? So yeah, that's how I've started thinking about these things. Like, I'm not a podcaster. I have a podcast, I have a Substack, right? And I'm writing my thoughts on it, and I'm using that as an exercise to write better and better if I can get time to do it. I usually have people, if people have seen my Substack, I usually have 5 minutes to write those articles. So 5 to 10 minutes, they will have mistakes and stuff, because I haven't even had the chance to read them again. So, but eventually finding that time to do that, and investing in my own self, so that I can grow myself, so that I can be a vehicle of change in the future if needed, right? Building myself up for that point. And this is the whole the point of it, that I want to look after what happens after the inevitable, right? So I want to build myself up to that point. I don't want to engage right now in what I know is going to happen, and what I know, no matter how much you try, you cannot avoid it, is going to be civil unrest, and all going to be all those things. So it's just no point. There are better people than me, right, who are actually activists, that can keep on doing that. They're actually good independent journalists who are doing these things, investigating and, like, filing for FOIs and whatever, and writing those things up. More power to them. There's no point of me trying to copy what they're doing, just so that I can get some views and clicks and stuff, right? Because that's the reason why a lot of people are doing social commentary and stuff as well. Just because, oh, like, everyone is talking about that right now. Oh, look at the YouTube metrics. It says, oh, this topic, riots, is up. So I'm going to just talk about riots. Like, I have 50,000 people talking about the same riots with the same point of view. Nothing original, right? What am I adding to it? What's the point, right? If there's already good enough people that I see, 49,999 might be shit, but one of them is good enough putting that point out, and I can't really add anything to it. Okay, let them do it, right? I'm not going to focus on that. I might give my thoughts every now and then, but, like, I'm not going to focus on that. So that's this period of self reflection for me, is like finding what I'm good at, building myself up for it, so that when the time comes, and it's not like I'm not like just finding a cabin somewhere in the woods and, like, just gonna live over there and, like, just screw the world. But I'm trying to go through this period so I can create the connections, if they are connect, and create the wider associations with people, to see how we can be more effective in the future after this period of struggle.
Well, I think it's fair to say that the theme of this conversation so far has been change, whether it's through a reformation, whether it's through a restoration, whether it's through changing our mind, whether it's through changing our approach to things. And so that was the most unsubtle segue into the final question that I ask all of my guests, which I didn't ask the first time round you were on the show, because it was before I had the bright idea to ask people this question. But Momus, what have you changed your mind on during the course of your life? I know we've talked a little bit about Islam already, so maybe something else. But what have you changed your mind on during the course of your life? It might have been an absolute, it might have been something smaller than that. And what was it that made you think differently?
I could write a whole book on that, I think so. Because there's so many things, and not like just little things, because I have to avoid the little things, but a major change in sort of my outlook of the world and stuff. I think so. The first point was that I actually was, a practicing Muslim. I wasn't, because most of the ex-Muslims that I come in contact with, they are people who never believed, like, in Islam properly or whatever, and they didn't pray or any, they weren't like really practicing Muslims, and they wanted to party and stuff like that, right? And that's why they left eventually, right? But it wasn't the case for me. I was actually, like, very diligent in that respect. I was devout, right? So that was a major change of, like, changing my mind on my own faith, and and even on God, and becoming like really militant atheist. And then a huge change came when I changed from that point of view to an agnostic point of view, to someone who's investigating the spirit, then, right? That's a spiritual self, then, right? And to understanding the importance of Christianity, right? So those are like big, huge philosophical changes, right? And then going from someone who was very liberal to someone who's keeping those liberal values, but understanding the importance of the, conservative and traditional values along with it, right? So that's the change in political philosophy as well, from liberalism to traditionalist conservatism, right? And then along with that, like, there's a huge things that, change comes in, like, and also from that liberal to the conservative side is also like how you live your own life, and to how, you view the importance of families and the importance of all those things, right? So in between, there's a lot of things that I will keep on changing my mind on, because those are like huge shifts in my mind, right? I think so. Like, those are the guiding principles, and obviously, like, current change as well. Current change, I won't really say it's a change. It's just reverting back, right? So it's not a change for me. It's like, it's not as if like, oh, I'm trying to be something I'm not. I actually am trying to be something that I am. That's why I'm not. I want to change the way that I tackle social media and, podcasting and stuff like that.
There's a course correction. It's effectively embracing the core part of your personality having been, I suppose, diverted through circumstance. You've in a fit of passion is probably an unfair, but through a passionate response to the things that you've been seeing that have exercised your spirit and will, you've jumped on things. It's changed your approach.
I care that much as well, right? Like, if I didn't care about Britain that much, it wouldn't matter to me, right? I'll just like move elsewhere and, like, whatever.
Well, yeah, we spoke about that last time. You could have gone anywhere else, and you chose here. And I don't know, you've also made the point that, look, you're of Pakistani heritage. There is quite a lot of conversation about what we do with an immigration policy in the future with regards to discriminating against where people are from, including not letting people in from Pakistan. There's also been quite a lot of people who say, right, no one now, and maybe get rid of everyone who already is. And that's in small circles. But I know you have such a patriotism, I suppose, for the country, that I've even heard you say that despite your heritage, and despite the fact that those policies would end up discriminating against you and could see you kicked out, which I don't think will happen, of course. But you've said, but who am I to say? Because Britain is bigger than me. It's got this 1,000-long year history and more. How could I expect it to care just solely about me and my kind of ethnic group, as it were, which is, I think, to a lot of people would be a very, very alien view to hear anyone say. And so it just does go to show how much you really are invested in this country, I suppose, not self-immolating. And so you've been writing a book, Momus, so maybe we can finish on this. I think you've been writing a book on Islam. What's the progress? When can we expect it? And then I suppose on top of that, where can people find you if they don't know you already?
Okay, so I mean, the book about Islam that I'm writing, and I'm just, the outline is there, the structure, the skeleton is there. I'm just thinking of how to present it, additions to it. Maybe there might be some additions to it as well. what route do I want to go to? Do I want to go to the theological route, or do I want to go to the sort of more political route with it? So there's things that I'm considering, or do I want to go with just the informative route? Like, this is what is in there, make up your own mind, sort of a thing, right? So those are the things that I'm investigating right now. I don't know when I'll be finished, but I have a feeling that I need to get it out of my system, right? So I need to write this book. So it might be that I don't publish it till, like, few years, and I continue writing my fictional books in the middle, because that's actually what I write.
Yeah.
Fiction, and not reality. But but I don't think so. Like, I don't have a deadline in my head. Before, I thought, like, maybe I'll finish it before November, because my book was themed on Islam Awareness Month, as opposed to the Islamophobia Awareness Month. So I did wanted to release it in November, because it's actually built on the tweet thread that I did on Twitter, where I every single day of November I pointed out a thing that is wrong with Islam, right? So that was my Islam Awareness Month that I celebrated while people are celebrating Islamophobia Awareness Month. So the book will have that element, of, like, each of the days that is going to do it. So it probably will be published in one of the Novembers. Don't know just which one and when I need to do it. Maybe I need to look at through a fresh mind, and or a combative mind, a mind that is thinking about how can effective change happen, rather than just to antagonize. Like, so it's like, there's you can either burn the Quran, right, and antagonize people and get the reaction as an activist, right, or you can actually, critique the Quran properly, right? So those are the two sort of ways of doing it. Which one can actually have more effective change and sort of save the souls of the Muslims themselves, to be honest, so that they get out of that religion and stop following that that ideology. I think so. Those are the things that I'm investigating. Probably take a while.
Interesting.
I'm not known to finish things as well, so. But yeah, and apart from that, like, yeah, people can find me on Substack, theworldofmomus.com. They can find me on Twitter at the World of Momus, and they can find me on Instagram, the World of Momus. They can find me on YouTube, the World of Momus. Everywhere is the World of Momus.
There you go. Google the World of Momus and they'll all come up. Well, Momus, thank you for coming into my digital world and letting me in yours. It's a pleasure as always. You're a pleasure. You're a pleasure. You're a gentleman, but you are a pleasure. You're a great pleasure. You're a gentleman. I wish you every success. I hope that you find your way through writing the book, and I think it's probably a sensible thing to think about. Truth. There are ways in which to deliver it, which is more effective. So I can fully understand why you're tossing up there. But hey, look, November 26th sounds good. At least you have an extra year then. Thank you very much for coming on. I'm sure we will speak again. And in the meantime, keep fighting the good fight.
Thank you.
To keep up to date with all that I am doing, please subscribe to the Thinking Class YouTube channel at Thinking Class and follow me on X at Thinking Classes. Thinking Class seeks to understand the civilizational issues we face and why what our leaders do in response matters. Here, I seek to explore the ideas, values, and culture that made our civilization, those that are unmaking it, and how leaders at our public and private institutions should respond. Engage with me on YouTube or X, or write to me at thinkingclasspod@gmail.com to tell me who you want me to speak to and what topics are important to you. I look forward to seeing you there and for joining me on this journey.